Welcome to Steve's Cottage with Steve Horner. Steve Horner, a former radio talk show host, helps spotlight the source of today's social chaos while offering practical solutions to the problems negatively affecting you and your family. And now, here's Steve.
Good morning, you wild and crazy guys. I wanted to start the show with my shades on just to show you that I'm a pretty cool guy, but I'm taking them off now, so you'll have to put up with my beady eyes. But Sean, my producer, tells me that the only video that you'll be able to see me through is on Facebook and YouTube, unless there's others. Sean, are there others?
Just those two right now.
Just those two right now. Otherwise, all the platforms are audio, and so I'll be getting out to the universe on audio. But if you want to see what the cottage looks like, you want to see what I look like, then check it out on YouTube or Facebook. Well, listen, this is Steve's Cottage, and I want to back up just a second because I said good morning to you wild and crazy guys. And that's a force of habit, because in my past life as doing radio talk show hosts positions in various cities and various size markets, it was in the morning usually. And so I'd say, good morning, everybody, and here we are. But here, it's a different universe. It's a different animal. And so I'm likely to talk to you at any time of the day, 24/7, because here we're out in the digital space. We're not on an FCC radio station, and that's a little different for me. And besides not doing 4 hours condensed into 25 minutes, I got to put 10 pounds of you-know-what into a 5-pound bag. So I decided to make this into a part 1 and part 2. So, and maybe I'll just change the greeting to be kind of like Jim Carrey in that show, The Truman Show, where he's, nice, humble guy. He said, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and if I don't see you later on, good night. So maybe we'll do the Jim Carrey thing. But anyhow, it's good to have your company. And I said you wild and crazy dudes because obviously everybody is welcome. But the demographic that I've chosen for this program, because of its content and because of the issues involved, and mostly because of who is negatively impacted by these social issues that I'll be that I'll be throwing your way, are men, 18 to 49. You are the guys that have mostly been screwed over by these idiot, hypocritical social standards that have taken your dad out of the picture, who have forced you to be arrested for false calls on domestic abuse and harassment and the rest of the nonsense, you see? Yes, some of it does exist, but a lot of it is phony, and it has put you into serious situations at time, and it's just unfair, and it causes you oftentimes to rebel even more because of the hypocrisy. So we're going to be talking about some of that today with Steve Horner here at Steve's Cottage. And the title of today's program, and when I told Sean this, he kind of laughs, says, I don't know, do you want to go, you want to punch him between the eyes on the first show? Well, I don't. I want to sneak up on you kind of like a little bunny rabbit, but also I want you to know that we're talking, some serious issues. And if you've been to my website, and this is where you tap into my podcast, Steve's Cottage, at stevehornerbooks.com, you'll see that my book, the pink one, is called CUNTS. And the sequel, kind of a cute play on word, is called Consequences. And the consequences are what I talked about earlier here, about these things that you get entrapped by, that we'll be talking about on this on the show, on the cottage from time to time. So today's program is called Who's Afraid of the CUNTS? Part 1. And then next week, or whenever we decide to do this, Who's Afraid of the CUNTS? Part 2. Now, you can take the word cunt and you can dissect it and you can use it any way you want to, okay? Because you're the listener. You're my target demo. You're my wild and crazy dude that I'm talking to. So you can take it as a derogatory term against women, and they hate it. But they didn't seem to say too much when Chuck Schumer's niece called Donald Trump's beautiful wife a cunt. Not much was said about that. How about the Muslim representative from up at my home state, which I'm a little ashamed of these days, Minnesota? She called President Trump a mother effer. So you can take the word cunt and you can use it any way you want to as a derogatory word for women, but you don't have to, because I have it printed out as an acronym: C period, U period, N period, T period. Yes, there are a lot of periods, but we're talking women and we men. Well, we are exclamation points, exclamation marks, right? So C period, U period, N period, T period. That's an acronym. It stands for can't understand normal thinking. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself and where I'm from, because I want you and I to get to know each other. I'm probably a little bit older than you. I was born in St. Paul and raised in Minneapolis. I was born on the very same, and I'm not going to do the math for you. I'm going to let you work it out. But I was born on the very same day that the Major League Baseball's Rookie of the Year was inaugurated. The very first year that award was inaugurated was the day that I was born. And I'll tell you who was the very first recipient. Come on, you baseball jocks out there. Come on, you wild and crazy guys. Tell me, who was the first recipient of the inaugural Major League Baseball Rookie of the Year award? He was the first black ball player for the major leagues. That's right, Jackie Robinson. He received that in Chicago on November 12th, and I'm not going to tell you what year. You do the math, and you'll find out, oh, geez, Steve sounds good for a guy his age. Well, thanks anyhow. But anyhow, so, I was born to, Jack and Sel. Sel was Selenier, Lucier, French-Canadian. Jack Horner. Of course, he went on to become radio and television pioneer, and that's the name he used for Jack Horner's Sports Corner. And you can look him up on the internet. Go Minnesota. Let's see, Mr. Minnesota Sports. He has all sorts of firsts, and he had the very last interview with Babe Ruth before he died of throat cancer. So you'll see a lot about Jack Horner. Always very proud of my mom and dad, and 5 great brothers. We played a lot of sports together. So we would make these chugs, they out of 2x4s, then put a couple of horse engine Briggs and Stratton on it, and steer it down the street, with your feet trying to steer the wheels by pushing left or right, and inevitably getting smashed up on a tree or something like that. Playing football, baseball down at Clara Barton Field and down to Lyndhurst, ice skating in the winter and everything. Yeah, 5 brothers, really fun. And of course, then the girlfriends started to show up in the crazy cars out in front, and it was a good time. And the brothers sneaking out at night or sneaking in at 2:00 in the morning, and my mom would say, "Phil, is that you?" And sometimes I'd be sneaking in. And I remember one evening, I'm about 18, and he piled a bunch of empty cans at the back door, so that when I was sneaking in, I knocked over the cans, and he's sitting at the kitchen table drinking hot Nestle's Quick, laughing, you see. So, it was a lot of fun growing up with 5 brothers and a lot of different adventure. But you see, these days, and of course, we always had church, because that's what a dad does for you. These days, and a responsible, hardworking mother. But these days, well, I'm reminded of being at a bar in the afternoon, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, happy hour, in Denver. And I was doing a radio show there, and I had just busted a big ladies' night deal. Now, we're going to talk more about ladies' night because that has infrastructural principles very, very deep, especially in regard with all the issues and chaos that's going on these days. But it was a violation of principles. And so Jon Stewart did this big deal, and his co-host, who's now the main dude there, is John Oliver, was the host of this show. It was a 7-minute special on his half-hour show, and so it was busting ladies' night. And these two black dudes at the bar recognized me. Well, they started laughing with me and having a good time. And I was in the military. I was in the infantry, and I enjoyed talking to black guys. When I grew up in Minneapolis only had like 2%. But now it's, tons more, and I hate to say it, but it's the truth. With it comes about 100 different murders each year. Back in 1960 and 61 in Minneapolis, when the city had 500,000 people, okay, now it has about two and a quarter because of America's exodus to the suburbs. It had 500,000 people, twice as many people as it does today, you see. Guess how many murders were in 1960 and 61? 1 and 2, respectively, you see. So the number of people in an audience has no bearing, or should have no bearing, on the amount of crime. Here in Utah, I'm talking to you from St. George, Utah. A lot of it's the St. George is the home of Brigham Young's very first temple, before the Salt Lake City temple was built. There's a lot of Mormons here, big families. The big families don't have crime because they got their mom and dad involved, you see? And the kids know better. They're raised with principles. They go to church. They live a good, happy life, you see? And are there some revolts? Sure. There is in any family, no matter how you're going to bring them up. But the point is that it didn't have much crime back then because people were more behaved. They were well behaved, and crime was way down, and school graduations were way up. And so because of this, I was raised with a strong self-esteem. Well, these two black guys I was talking about, standing at the bar, having beers and laughing, and having a good time, And I enjoy talking to different types of people. The black guys, they got the big belly laughs, and everything, and they're raised differently, different culture. I like different cultures, you see. And so I ask a lot of questions. Well, they recognized me, and they were talking about how little and how weak white people are, because they would say, yeah, hell yeah. You white people here, you couldn't put up with 45 days in jail. You couldn't put up with a year in jail. Hell no. Yeah, you sissies, you see. And I said, well, I probably couldn't survive a jump from a high bridge either. But just because I couldn't survive it doesn't mean I want to go and try it. I know that it's not a practical thing to do. I know that I don't want to spend that much time in jail. So would I be uncomfortable? Yeah. I'd survive it, though. I was in the infantry for a year. Could you have done that? So we're having a conversation back and forth like this. But you see, in today's world, it seems to be a badge of honor of how much of a derelict let's see, how should I put this? It seems to be a badge of honor to have been brought up in chaos. Oh, yeah, I never knew my father. Oh, yeah, my mom, I think she was a hooker. Yeah. Oh, no, we'd never go to school. Hell, yeah. No, hey, we didn't have any food in the house, you see? We had to eat at the schools, Is that supposed to be a badge of honor? That's being raised by derelicts, lazy, irresponsible people, you see? And a lot of it comes down to cunts. Can't understand normal thinking. And who supports this crowd? It's the cunts and the selves in the welfare departments, in the schools, and the corrections. Well, that's actually where a lot of this cunt mentality arises from and is empowered by your very own government. So anyhow, so I went to the private schools, walked down to Visitation Catholic school, started doing altar boy work in fourth grade, picking up my friend John Crowley for the 6:30 mass. Pick him up about 6 o'clock. Maybe it's storming out. Maybe it's 10 below, already a foot of snow. And I'm in fourth grade, bundled up. That's pretty adventuresome. Black as night, because, in the middle of the winter there in Minnesota, that gets dark early, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And and it doesn't get light until late. So that was an adventure. But you look back on that, and that's where your self-esteem comes from. Because instead of being able to say, yeah, well, I went through 2 years in the workouts, man, and you couldn't do that because you're a white guy. Well, maybe you couldn't trudge to, learn your Latin. My mom and I worked at the kitchen table for months teaching me Latin, because back in those days you had to respond to the priest in Latin. So that was a challenge. But when you're able to get up there on the altar and you got 10 people in the pews at the 6:30 mass, and you're able to recite all this, and you're all dressed up in your garb, you feel good, and you look back on that and you say, gosh, yeah, we went to, that was deep snow. It was cold, and we did it. I had a paper route about the same time when I was about that age. In the cold, in the summer, in the heat, and about 60 papers. Sometimes I'd get up to 70, then I'd drop again, have to go out and sell them again. But these are the types of things. I've had about 25 jobs over my life. And as Sean here can attest, I'm kind of an outspoken type of guy, and oftentimes the jobs don't last because of that outspokenness. But that's who I am. I feel good about myself. I feel like I'm able to teach society a few of the lessons that I've learned, and to share some of the insight about where these problems come from. Got a little bit older, went to a horse ranch outside of town, worked out there for a couple of years, earning $1 a day. That was really fun. But we wouldn't do it for the money. We'd have the girls come out here from the city, and they'd have these fancy horses, and we call them the boarders because they would be boarding their horses. And now there's a lot of kissing in the barn going on. The old line is, what goes on in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, what went on in the barn stayed in the barn. And those were great days. And so worked out there in the weekends during, I think, up to my freshman year at high school. Well, so then I went into the military, sold some shoes at Florsheim for, for a year or two after high school and during high school, and then signed up for the military. Wasn't drafted. I knew the draft was inevitable. This was in 1967. Vietnam's really getting rocking, you see. The Tet Offensive, where I was wounded, that was in 1968. So this was really, really rocking. The most number of American deaths, And in my account of the Vietnam book, of the Vietnam War, and my experience, that's at stevehornerbooks.com. That's the yellow one. I put it in Vietnamese colors, and it's called Dear Folks, because that's how I would usually address my letters from Vietnam back home. You see, Dear Folks. And I thought that was kind of a fun, clever title. And I got a real nice review from the Vietnam Veterans of America. They said, very, very well done. And what's the word they use? Verisimilitude, which means it comes across as being very authentic, very truthful. And the guy told me on the phone, he says, it's the most truthful sounding book I've ever read from an infantryman. He says, there's like no BS here. It's, I can tell by reading your stories and your commentary and seeing your pictures, very, very truthful. And that's indeed a real compliment. So from there, I went, served served beer and booze at a Hoppin, California place where my brother was manager on the border of Venice and Santa Monica. That was called the Ore House. And a lot of people will say, "What did you say?" I said it's ore, O-A-R, like those you put in the water, you know. Well, we had a peanut bar and peanuts on the floor, and they had bought out the Hell Roach Studios, you see, and they're the producers of Laurel and Hardy. So all sorts of props. I mean, every square inch. You see this old wood behind me right here? It was that kind of theme, and stuff, tagged all over, and a guy's leg that came down that would usher in fresh salted in the shell peanuts in a great big barrel. And back then, and that was about 1969 when I got out of the Army. Oh, I meant to say, so I signed up for the Army. Instead of waiting for the inevitable draft, which would have been 2 years, I didn't want to sign up because that'd be 3 years. So I signed up for the draft, which elevates your name on the draft list. Well, it wasn't more than a week later when I got a greetings from the president. "Greetings, Mr. Horner. You are to, show up at such and such downtown on a certain date." Well, it was only a week later, but that's fine. And I did get wounded. I've got some disability coming in, but, absolutely the most marvelous, craziest, wildest adventure of my life. And I'm going to say, thank God I am still alive and in one piece, because it was a heck of a deal. A lot of guys didn't make it, and I pray for them every day. Because, read the book. I have some very strong feelings about it, good, bad, and ugly. Which, by the way, reminds me to remind you, if you have any comments about this show, good, bad, and ugly, let me hear from you, Steve at stevehornerbooks.com. And maybe I'll print it. Maybe I'll mention you on the phone. And if you got some real gumption, give me your name. Otherwise, you can be anonymous. So, that was my life. And after doing bartending for a while, I thought, well, I better get serious with doing something, And but that was fun. 69-cent Chivas Regal and Smirnoff and Beefeaters, and 31-cent Budweiser. And boy, we really rocked there. That was fun. Get a lot of tourists, in from all over, and get the beach girls from the volleyball down there at Venice Beach, and a lot of locals. And that was really fun. That was a good couple of years. But then, you realize you got to start getting serious about life. And so I took my dad's lead, and I went to Brown Institute and got into radio and television, and then started my own advertising agency. And Joyce and I were married for 10 years. And then, she decided she wanted out. And so I got custody of the two children, two boys, age 5 and 2. And you see, now that's what really woke me up to what was going on with the feminists. Why was Joyce leaving me? Well, she said, "Steve just don't love you anymore." She wanted to find herself. Well, how, that became a very common mantra out there from these women. I want to find myself. Well, I thought you found me. We found the two children. And don't we have a nice life? Well, I just don't love you anymore. Well, that's not like what the, my mom and dad went through. They stuck it out through thick and thin, and that was for the best of all of us. And it was for the best of all of us. And that was the long run best of for all of us, you see? And they died when they were well into their 90s, and what a great life. And I'm telling you, if they're not in heaven, then there is no such thing. Well, thanks for joining me here at Steve's Cottage, and be sure to buy one of my self-authored books today at stevehornerbooks.com and get more detail about some of these hot social issues and how you can better understand them and protect yourself from the CUNTS. So until next time, stay on that rugged, less traveled path of life. It's more fun, provides better scenery, and offers a richer package of rewards. This is Steve Horner from Steve's Cottage. Until next time we visit, take real good care of yourself.
Thanks for joining us. Visit Steve's Cottage again with Steve Horner.